Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on this crisp December morning, for braving the cold to come here. Thank you for joining live. This event is organized by International Vintage Poster Dealer Association. It's an association that was founded in 1996 by a group of established dealers with the aim to promote poster art and educate general public, collectors and other buyers about vintage posters and their diversity. And the members of the association have strict professional criteria to ensure the posters that they sell are authentic. And when you're looking for posters, check that the dealers have the IVPDA website logo on the website, so to ensure that the posters are authentic. I would like to thank also Poster House for allowing us to host this event in this wonderful space. Their team has been fantastic, and the production crew that are Level Productions that are live streaming the event as well, and all the presenters that committed their time to be here and talk about posters with you. So my presentation is first. It's an introduction to vintage posters. I call it also art with let me first sort of tell you how I got into posters. I grew up in the Soviet Union, surrounded by posters on all the walls. The ones that you can see on the left here, a strong man sort of motivating people to do best for their country. And these posters were plastered on all the walls in schools, factories, and pretty much all over the place. And then I came to New York in the early 90s and saw a poster for an exhibition at the Guggenheim Museum called The Great Utopia that focused on Soviet art from 1920s, 30s. And that's the poster you can see on the left side of the slide. The graphics looked completely non-Soviet to me. It was something that I've never seen before, and I didn't believe that they could have been produced in the Soviet Union. And at school we were not really taught about 1920s and 30s because capitalism was introduced briefly, and the country went through a period of rapid growth where commerce was booming. Largely there was no censorship. Hollywood was very popular, people were free to travel. And for a while it looked like socialism could have a human face, but then Stalin had other plans later on in the period. So, but I think from an artist's point of view, that was a very exciting period where it looked like the country could be something built for the people, by the people. And for me, the posters were a window to that country. They all told a story. Told the story of a particular time, and that's what I enjoy the most as well, or one of the aspects I enjoy about the job dealing with posters is that every piece has a story to tell. It's either artist, subject, or period that I find exciting and doing research on. And these stories provide us with a connection to the past, largely. So, posters have existed for a long time. I mean, the sort of earliest ones date to the 15th century. Origins of the actual word, one of the versions is that most likely it relates to posts because they used to display posters on posts, hence the word poster. Largely textual early on, quite boring. But in 1880s, Jules Scheller sort of came up with an idea of scaling down poster printing and reinvented the medium, and they became a bit more arty. But even back then, they were addressing people, advertising events that were going on, but also used by the government to deliver the messages that were necessary. And the posters, though, they have sort of this ability of grab attentions of a passerby and engage them for a brief period of time. And an effective poster then sort of forces an action onto a person through its imagery. And most of these posters on the wall, on the slide, are from the 18th century. So we think that these days we're subjected to everyday barrage of the social media. Back then it was not dissimilar. All the walls were covered with posters, screaming and shouting different messages to people. Posters essentially are an early form of mass communication and social media, and the most effective way back then to distribute information in the pre-TV era. As you can see, the walls of many cities were completely covered in posters of different sizes, different colors, different styles, and essentially streets were art museums for people back then. Part of the street theater, and showcased the prevalent styles in a particular era. But also, they became an important part of the social history. They pretty much fabric of everyday life that survive to this day and give us a glimpse of what was popular back then, what kind of styles, and what people were living with. And generally, posters are a reflection of a public taste. But as you can see, given the amount of media displayed on the walls, the things or the posters that really did stand out had to be very different to everything else that was on the wall. So how are the posters printed? Most of these are lithographs. Lithography, it's a combination of two words, Greek words, lithos, stone, and grapho, to write. So stone lithos were printed or were hand-drawn in a reverse image on individual piece of stone, and each color had its own stone, so they would be consecutively printed onto a piece of paper to create an image at the end. What other means of printing posters? Offset is similar to lithograph in a way that images, or each color then has a metal plate or rubber blanket or rollers, and then they consecutively get printed onto the paper. The silk screen, where essentially image is broken down into stencil and then pushed through the material onto the paper. And the fact that the posters can be produced in a variety of techniques. Some are expensive, like lithography, some are less expensive, like stencil or woodblock, means that they can be manufactured quite easily, quickly, and done at home. That's why they're often used as a language of protest. For example, students during the Paris demonstrations in 1968 used posters quite extensively, and they were done as stencils and quite popular for collectors today. So just sort of looking at how the posters are from an artist's perspective, how different are they to painting? Both artists would rely on the previous experience and how they regarded when they gained commissions. But with painting, client gives commission to an artist and largely doesn't have much impact into what comes out at the end. Whereas when artists design posters, client has to say into what is on the poster very often. They give a very detailed brief, often of what needs to be there, and become part of the process of creative design at the end. The artist has to pitch his design and only gets paid after the poster is commissioned. So what you see on the slide here is a design for a poster from 1933. It's a design by Lillian Drain for London Underground. If you sort of think about it, this is 1930s. London Underground is portrayed as Hermes, the modern god of transport. Quite bold statement for those days. The poster is designed as a triptych, very similar to religious art, and the figure has London Underground roundel at its heart. The mouse is the building of the BBC. The eyes are the National Gallery. The Royal Albert Hall is the ears. The veins pretty much are sort of schematic lines of the London Underground. And there's a snake that is sort of like a train of the London Underground carrying people. The design was very well received by the London Transport, but why do you think it was not printed? Any ideas?
He's naked.
He's naked? Not quite, yeah.
It looks like military.
Military?
Yeah. Do you want
Yeah.
it? It seems like very different to the other London Underground posters at the time.
It is, but ultimately it came down to cost. It was designed for 3-panel poster, so that would mean that they would have to adjust the displays that were on the stations, and it was costly to print 3 sheets as compared to just a normal 1-sheet poster. So it's another factor that impacts artists' work for poster design. But sometimes artists also have an impact onto the product that is advertised, or the imagery and corporate identity even of a company. This is a poster for Michelin, and founders of the Michelin company were walking around a Universal Colonial exhibition in Lyon in 1894 and saw a pile of tires. And the idea came to them that it'd be a great idea to have a mascot made out of tires. They forgot about that for about 5 years, and then they met French cartoonist Marius Rossillon, popularly known as Ogalo, and he showed them a sort of a pitch that he made for a German brewery that featured a very stout-looking gentleman called Bibendum holding a glass of beer, and the slogan was the Horace's phrase, "Nunc est bibendum," now's the time for drinking. And the founders of the Michelin company quite liked the image, but then you think, how would they combine something that was designed for brewery with the ad for the tire company? So they made this gentleman in bibendum, who's made of tires, and the idea was that the slogan was still "Nunc est bibendum," now's the time to drink. But the pitch was that the tires of the Michelin are so smooth, they drink all the imperfections of the road. So if you look at the poster, it says at the bottom, "Le pneu Michelin voit l'obstacle." Michelin tire drinks the obstacles. And he's holding a cup full of broken glass and nails and all the nasty things you find on the road. And on both of his sides, you see the tire X and tire Y looking completely deflated. So it's a clever sort of use of, I guess, design that failed somewhere else, but became quite iconic. And Michelin Man is actually now one of the most recognized corporate identities and mascots. About 90% of the population around the world recognizes Michelin. This poster was, the initial poster was created in 1898, but they liked it so much that they would update it ever so often, adding different products that Michelin company produced on the table in front of the Michelin Man. So what are the styles, artistic styles of posters? Belle Epoque is not an art style, but sort of a period before the First World War. Posters generally in that period followed the same kind of design principles, quite bright, colorful, often featuring ladies in flowing dresses, and kind of jolly and fun. Jules Scheller worked extensively during that period. He's considered pretty much grandfather of the posters in general. And what he did, he actually in the 19th century, he was quite influenced by the Japanese woodblock printing. And he came up with the idea of scaling down the number of colors that are used in poster production, which allowed for posters to be printed in a cheaper, more effective way. And he was quite prolific. He produced over 2,000 posters in his life, advertising multitude of products and events. Leonardo Capello also is worth mentioning. His designs are quite stunning and have this wow factor that feels quite modern even today. He's very popular with collectors, bold and striking designs, using sort of background of a single color. But he's also pioneered the art of branding. He had this ability to distill a corporate identity of a product into a single figure. Quite whimsical, fun, but very memorable and recognizable. And designs were simplified but effective, and even today they're quite popular and work quite well in modern decors. Another art style is Art Nouveau. This was a sort of art style that not only included posters, it was architecture, other forms of applied art, and characterized by flowing lines and beautiful, elegant designs. One of the artists that pretty much is a leading artist of that period was Alfons Mucha. He's known for his Mucha muses, very elegant ladies that were featuring quite often in his posters. Mucha has a profound impact on the design during that period. He became collectible during his life, and a lot of his posters were pretty much printed to be sold to the members of the public. And there is a very good museum of his in the Czech Republic. If you're in Prague, I recommend going there. Art Deco is another visual art design style. I'll talk briefly about it because there will be a whole presentation on Art Deco posters later on. Mid-century modern is art movement that's sort of was popular in the United States and Europe from roughly 45 to 69. Very sort of clean, simple lines. Generally did not include any decorative embellishments, and again very popular with collectors these days because these posters work quite well in modern apartments. One of the artists that worked in that style was Abram Games. He's a British artist, was drafted in World War II and designed quite a lot of posters for the British Army. One of his designs, you can see on the bottom left, for auxiliary territorial service, was actually banned or withdrawn because the British government thought that the design was too glamorous and would attract ladies to the ATS for all wrong kind of reasons. But one of the quotes, and I would like to quote him here, which I quite like, is he acknowledges his power as a propagandist. He claimed, "I want the spring, and the public, in looking at the poster, will have the spring released in its mind," which I think is a quite appropriate image, appropriate phrase for a lot of effective posters. They really get into your mind and sort of make you look twice at what they portray, but also stay with you for a while to advertise whatever they portray. One of the sort of surprising aspects that influence poster design often is corporate restructuring. You don't think about it really as something that would impact the art scene, but in Britain, posters in the late 19th, early 20th century were considered by artists as not very prestigious in terms of commissioning. And railways actually largely started to change that. They started employing Royal Academy artists. Norman Wilkinson was actually one of the first artists to start working for the railway companies. And by doing that, they changed the perception of the artist of how posters should be designed, but also of the sort of positioning in the art world overall. But largely, British railway posters were quite informative, not very artistic. You can see two examples on the left. And in 1923, the British government decided to reorganize the railway companies. And out of the existing 123 private railways, they formed 4 new companies, known collectively as the Big Four, which allowed for larger advertising budgets. And the companies actually decided to create their very distinct corporate identities and started employing artists on working on the posters, and the posters themselves became much more exciting and much more stylish. And this period has been referred to as the golden age of the railway poster in Britain. Artists such as Cassandra, McKnight Kalfa, Fred Taylor, Tom Purvis produced extremely fine work advertising different destinations. It also coincided with popularity of seaside resorts in Britain, so there were lots of new destinations to promote. And I guess advances in machinery as well, because some of the posters you can see there advertise Flying Scotsman train, which was the quickest way to get to Scotland at that time, but also was a very glamorous way to travel. Another corporate that had a profound impact on the poster design in Britain was London Transport. And that was largely driven by Frank Pick, who became the chairman and chief executive officer of the London Passenger Board from its creation in 1933 until 30, but he had an active role in designing corporate identity for the company. He believed that the value of good design, and I quote here, extends beyond mere aesthetics. It enhances the quality of daily life for everyone. So his view was to make the London Underground a place where people would actually like to spend time. And quite a lot of designs were quite quirky, with a good sense of humor. Like the poster you can see on the screen on the bottom left corner for you, has a person riding an escalator on the wrong side with a learner sign on his back. This poster was designed by Fougas and was actually printed during the Second World War. So even in tough times, they actually wanted to create a bit of a fun atmosphere on the underground. The poster on the top right, it was designed by Man Ray. It keeps London going. It's from 1938, and to this day it's the most expensive London Underground poster sold. It was sold by our colleagues at Swann Galleries in 2018 for $148,000. Man Ray was an American visual artist who spent a lot of his career in Paris. He was a significant contributor to the Dada and Surrealist movements. So there are lots of factors here that make this design iconic. He sort of portrayed London Roundel there as one of the planets, which is kind of an outlandish idea, but it's very effective and quite visually striking. But posters were also produced by famous artists that are known beyond the poster world. The one you see on top left was designed by Picasso. Picasso was commissioned to design posters for Nice. This one has a wording called d'Azur, but there's another version that says Nice at the bottom as well. Roy Lichtenstein designed a poster for Aspen Winter Jazz that you can see on the screen at the bottom left. Above it, there's a poster for Munich Olympics from 1972 that was designed by David Hockney. It's a series of posters, art posters produced for the Olympics, and at that time David Hockney trained with a lot of other artists like Peter Phillips, Kitai and Alan Jones, who were also commissioned to produce posters for the Olympics in 1972. The posters on the left were designed by Salvador Dali for the French railways. So variety of Matisse also designed posters for Côte d'Azur. So famous artists also did dabble in poster design. Who are the people who buy posters? I mean, some of them are collectors, but majority of the people are just looking to decorate, put it on the walls to brighten up their life. And posters, I guess, is a medium that creates a personal connection with a person. It's all about the place. Very often it's where people are from, it's a period of time, or there is a special personal connection. Like we had one client who bought a poster for American Graffiti, and it was the first film he's seen with his father in the cinema. So there's always, with posters, a subject that could be very close to the person. But poster collecting became popular in France in late 19th, early 20th century, when Toulouse-Lautrec started designing posters, Steinlein and a few other designers, and sometimes enterprising dealers back then would strike a side deal with the print house to print just a few more posters of a popular artist so they can sell them to the collectors at that time. Subjects and themes of the posters that people collect vary. Sometimes it's a particular period, sometimes it's a particular airline, cruise ship company or railway company. One of our clients actually collects posters that feature tigers, regardless of the subject. He, I think, has about 12,000 posters in his collection, and he plans to publish a book and have an exhibition on the subject. But posters also are in collections of a lot of museums. MoMA, V&A, Tate Modern, lots of other posters, and now we have this beautiful place where we can see posters as well. And Poster House has done a fantastic job on featuring different subjects in their exhibitions, and Angelina Lippert will talk later about the exhibitions that they've been featuring. But overall, I think it's one of the few collectibles where you can purchase a museum quality piece at a relatively affordable price, even today. Talking about prices and sort of record prices, I guess, I wanted to talk about this poster. It's a poster for film Metropolis, released in 1927, directed by Fritz Lang. It's one of the sort of iconic sci-fi film posters. This version is actually a rare international style without any credits at the bottom. There are only 4 known to exist around the world. It was first sold in 2005 in a private sale for $690,000. But later on, there was a massive bankruptcy case and it came for sale again as a part of a lot that included other posters, King Kong, The Invisible Man, but that lot sold for $1.2 million, largely because of this poster. It is rumored that it has been acquired by Leonardo DiCaprio, but you know, it's sort of in analyzing why this poster is so expensive, it's all about the film. The film had a profound impact on a lot of movie directors that we know. Directors such as Ridley Scott, George Lucas, and others have cited Metropolis as a sort of inspiration of their work. It was groundbreaking in terms of set design, and if you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend it. Amazing Art Deco sets. It's beautiful, and even to today, I think it's definitely worth seeing. But talking about other price records for posters, it's mostly film posters are pretty much at the high end of poster prices. I guess largely driven by the fact that quite a lot of people in Hollywood collect them, and for them spending $200,000–300,000, I guess it's a different sort of reality than, at least for me. The poster on the left sold for $525,800 in an auction. It's a one sheet for Dracula. It's considered to be holy grail for movie poster collectors. And prior to the discovery of this one sheet poster, only once it did surface early in the early 1990s. So it's a quite rare piece. The one in the middle is a Casablanca poster. It's a 4-sheet poster, so it is massive. You could see some of the 4-sheet Italian posters in the exhibition of Italian posters that are here now. And it's a beautiful piece, rare, hence the price. And the one on the right, it's for London After Midnight. The film itself was lost, but this poster was discovered and it's sold in 2014. But the film was later recreated using 200 still photographs and a continuity script, and was later released on DVD. And it was the first time that this poster came up on the market in 87 years. So yeah, I guess it sort of makes sense. Post paper, you know, some of them just didn't survive. Posters by nature are ephemeral, were not meant to live that long, were plastered on the walls, glued, torn down or glued over. I know that in the 1920s, poster rolls of poster paper were quite popular with the homeless because they provided quite good insulation against the weather. And there's actually a story about a significant collection of British railway posters that was discovered when people were making renovations on the house and lifted the carpet on the floor and discovered railway posters underneath that somebody used as insulation, which was lucky because they survived. So, but overall, you know, film posters, as I said, sort of at the top of the end market, or at the top of the market because there's a Hollywood star collector base, DiCaprio, Nicolas Cage, and others. And another quiz for you to test. Yeah, but you probably all recognize this by now. It's iconic Times Square, but it just shows how effective some posters are. Just by using geometric shape, you instantly recognize what the subject of the poster is. This one was designed by David Klein. It's an early, rare 1956 version. There were a few, the TWA liked the poster so much they kept on reprinting it, updating the planes at the top and adding the slogans as well. This one features a Constellation plane, and if you haven't been to the TWA hotel, I highly recommend it. It's in GFK and they have a Constellation plane there, which is actually turned into a bar. Yeah. So that's it from me. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer. Yep.
What trends do you see among collectors?
Hi Kirill, just what trends do you see among collectors, like new trends, new interests?
Thank you. I find that it's sort of quite often related to economy, surprisingly. In the last 2-3 years, we've seen a very strong collector base coming out of India, for example. As markets develop, economy develops, middle class develops, people have more disposable income, and posters are a great way for people to rediscover the history of the country, similar in a way that it was for me, for example. I see at the moment strong market developing in Poland as well, especially for interwar material between the First and the Second World War. But then some subjects continue to be popular, like for example ski posters. I see strong demand now also for Soviet space posters, And I think with the further commercialization of the space travel, when it becomes more affordable, I think people just like them as presents. And Soviet graphics are quite strong as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other questions? Great. Well, we'll progress to the next presentation then. It's well.
I should point out that poster in New York is a IVPDA poster by David.
She's a co-owner and co-founder of a women-owned studio dedicated to restoration and conservation of vintage posters, prints, fine art, and collectibles. The studio, Fourth Cone, was founded in 2014, and the fourth cone actually refers to the color sensing cells in human eye. Most people have 3 types of those cones, while small percent have 4th, allowing us to perceive a wider range of colors. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to a video by Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Chelsea, co-owner of Fourth Cone Restoration. Today we're going to talk about what every collector should know, how to properly store your vintage posters, and how it ties into conservation and restoration. Good storage isn't just about organization. It directly affects how your poster ages over the next 10, 20, or even 50 years. Vintage posters were created as functional display pieces, not long-term collectibles. Because of that, the paper and inks were never meant to withstand decades of environmental exposure. Proper storage becomes essential for slowing natural aging and protecting the artwork from fading, brittleness, discoloration, or even warping. Ideally, you want to keep posters stored in a cool, dry, stable environment, with temperatures ranging between 65 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 22 degrees Celsius, and humidity should stay within 30 to 50%. What you want to avoid is extreme humidity fluctuations. Paper expands and contracts with changes in temperature and moisture, which can lead to surface distortions like waviness, buckling, and weakened paper fibers. Light is one of the biggest threats to posters. When displaying a poster, avoid direct sunlight. Use UV filtering acrylic or glass, and keep overall light levels low. When storing a poster, darkness is best. Even small amounts of continuous light exposure can cause pigments to fade that can't be reversed. The materials surrounding your poster matter just as much as the environment. A few things to look for are archival, chemically stable boxes and boards, meaning materials that are acid-free, lignin-free, and made from fibers that won't off-gas or break down over time. Buffered or unbuffered tissue, depending on the sensitivity of the inks. Plastic sleeves made of polyester or polypropylene, both of which are safe and stable for long-term storage. A few things to avoid are PVC plastics, unknown office supply materials, rubber bands, pressure-sensitive tapes like masking tape and scotch tape, and newsprint. Poor quality storage materials can cause staining, acidity migration, brittleness, and fading over time. Storing posters flat is the safest method for long-term preservation, especially if they are not linen-backed. Metal flat files, archival boxes, or rigid folders are great options as long as they're slightly larger than the poster. For additional protection, use acid-free drawer liners and interleave sheets of buffered or unbuffered tissue. Buffered tissue is best for posters because it helps neutralize acids and protect paper made from wood pulp. Unbuffered tissue is safe for posters with sensitive or unknown inks, like early dyes, glossy coatings, photographic processes, or anything that might react to alkalinity. Use rolled storage only for posters that are structurally sound or for pieces that have been linen-backed. When rolling, use a wide diameter archival tube. 4 to 5 inches or wider. Conservation focuses on slowing or reversing deterioration, cleaning, stabilizing, and reinforcing the poster so it remains safe to handle, store, or display. Restoration addresses the visual appearance by repairing tears, adding missing paper and color, while preserving the integrity of the original artwork. And now that we've covered storage and basic care, let's talk about a common conservation treatment for posters: linen backing. And to show you exactly how it works, we'll walk through an example next. We are going to start by relining the poster. When the poster does not have adequate support, fold lines, tears, creases, holes can all reemerge when the poster is frequently rolled and unrolled. To make sure our work holds up, we are going to linen back the poster. This will also provide proper support for the restoration to be performed more seamlessly. The front and back of the poster is saturated with water. A mild detergent is then added. This will help relax the paper fibers and separate the old tissue backing. This process is incredibly time-consuming, and to avoid the poster soaking for too long, I bring in an extra pair of hands to assist. With the old backing removed and the poster cleaned, I decide to perform a mild bleaching treatment to remove the acid discoloration that's visible around the border. The poster is now ready to be linen backed. A fully reversible acid-free adhesive is applied to the back side. The poster is then mounted to a stretched canvas frame that is lined with acid-free paper. Melissa now preps the poster for restoration. Various techniques are performed to flatten fold lines, creases, and tears. A filler compound is added to holes and uneven areas along the surface of the poster. This part of the process is incredibly important as it will allow the restoration to be performed as seamlessly as possible. Patches and restoration need to be flush with the surface of the poster so that the restoration does not stand out or reflect light differently than the poster's surface. Melissa will now use various mediums, including watercolor and colored pencils, to fill in the missing pigment. The poster is then cut down from the frame, and a 1-inch linen margin is trimmed around the edges of the poster for handling purposes. Proper storage is a simple and effective way to protect your posters. And when a piece needs more than storage, whether for stability or appearance, professional conservation and restoration services can extend its life for decades to come.
It's always amazing to see the final results of a good restoration, and we're getting ready for Nico.
We're good? So I'm going to go over here. I feel like a doctor. Everybody feeling okay? Great to have everybody here today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the IVPDA for organizing this incredible symposium, the first of its kind. May there be many more. Thank you to Poster House for hosting us. Thank all of you for coming. Am I in the way? Can you see? Maybe if I go over to this side, will that be all right? It would be a great presentation if I stood in front of the screen the whole time. I have been asked here today to speak to you about Art Deco posters. This is the 100th anniversary of the 1925 Exposition Internationale des Arts Décoratifs et Industriels Modernes in Paris, from which Art Deco took its name many decades later. Just by way of a brief introduction, my name is Nicholas Lowry. I am the president of Swann Auction Galleries and head of the Swann poster department. I have been working with posters for basically my entire professional life, which is about 300 years. That's all I got. All right. How do we advance? Is it working? Am I pressing the wrong button? Yes. So we're going to begin with one of the most famous Art Deco artists, and everything I say really is subjective, not objective. Many other things, decorated the interior of the Normandy ocean liner, or at least part of the interior. And what I love about this poster, aside from the fact that it's beautiful, is the fact that it comes from 1924, which was the year before the Art Deco exposition took place. The point being that the style of art that we know as Art Deco did not begin in 1925. It just sort of became codified and more popular in 1925, and artists like Jean Dupas were doing these incredible works long before then, a year before. But there were some done in 1915, 1916, the early 1920s, and his style kept going long after the 1920s. So here in the years just before the Second World War, Dupas did this incredible poster for Bordeaux. You would think Bordeaux was perhaps best known for its wine. Dupas differs ever so slightly. And then we come to the exposition in 1925. And there were 4 official posters that were designed for this exposition. This one, perhaps the most Art Deco as we would consider it today, by Robert Bonfils. All of these posters were printed in 2 sizes, a small window size and then a larger size for the hoardings. What is very interesting about this poster, I hope you will agree with me that it is very beautiful and overtly very Art Deco in appearance. But what is really interesting about this poster is that it's only printed in 2 colors, red and black on the white paper, the white being the 3rd color, but not an ink color. And this interestingly tells us that despite all of the importance that history has put onto this exposition in 1925, the organizers really were doing it on the fly. Like a 2-color poster is basically considered cheap. So at the time, they really weren't putting their all into it. I mean, a lot of money was spent on the architecture of the fair and other things. Another poster for the exposition, and you will see the that roses are a continuing motif. This is Charles Lupeau, again, one of the great artists working in Paris in the 1920s, a colleague of Cassand and Paul Colin. Here, in the theme of industrial moderne, you see factories literally belching smoke into the sky that are turning into roses. So sort of in the many decades after the Industrial Revolution, there was still a lot of importance and progress seen in these industrializations. Again, this is only a 3-color poster, showing how little thought or how little attention was given. This is also a poster for the Art Deco exposition, and again, please feel free to disagree with me. I have a very odd character trait where I tend to say things with absolute certainty that have no basis in reality. So no matter how firmly I say something, you can always disagree. I don't like this poster. I think it's unattractive. I also think it has nothing to do with Art Deco. It's also only done in 2 or 3 colors. It's hard to actually say. Émile Antoine Bourdelle was an academic artist of the period. He was very well known in Paris, so the organizers must have thought his name would add some luster to the advertising effect of the show. So for people who collect anything to have to do with Art Deco, this is an important document, albeit not one that is particularly attractive. I think this is the kind of image that most people would associate with Art Deco design. Maurice Lowry was an illustrator, a fashion illustrator. He did a lot of work for the fashion magazines. And this advertising the French seaside resort of Trouville is this sort of wonderful boardwalk scene where you have beautiful young women in their elaborate robes, which I think really bespeaks his career as a fashion illustrator. You have couples walking dogs, there are older couples, there are students you see in their sort of school uniforms, a real sort of cross-section of a very fashionable life. And the idea was, oh, look at all these fabulous, fancy people who are so up to date on all the trends who come to Trouville, you should come as well. I'm probably going to use the word most famous a lot. In the spectrum of very famous French Art Deco artists, a very prominent place should go to Roger Broders, who really was one of the more well-known and renowned, and this is one of his most spectacular pieces. Again, you see fashion at the forefront. Broders really was more known for his landscape, so not that many of his posters feature people, and this one really is sort of like a laconic, beautiful beachside view. And I've always loved about Broders posters, for all of his seaside images, and there are quite a few, he was very much obsessed with the curve of the bay. Keep that in mind. Whenever you see his posters, you will see he always does the curve. I think it's magnificent. Michel Bouchot, a less well-known artist, but a great illustrator all the same. This is a highly stylized, delightful Art Deco image. I'm sorry, I have the clicker, that's why it's not going. Highly stylized Art Deco image. You can see the waves just implied by the 3 lines, the woman's hair, there's the waves in the pool, the stripes on their bathing suits. Again, it sort of combines fashion, it combines travel, it combines luxury. And a lot of people think that Art Deco was a purely European or French tradition or practice. It wasn't. It existed in America too. The first time I came across these posters, I was stunned because honestly, I didn't believe that American artists in the 1930s could do such elegant work. William Welsh did this for the Pullman Rail Company. It's from a series of, I believe, it's either 4 or 6 different images of women involved in different activities, here sort of diving for beautiful conch shells. And again, if you can see the pattern of the seaside, of the ocean floor, and the algae and the bubbles that are going up behind it, the whole thing is like a masterful, masterful design. As is this one from Italy, really one of the great posters. Have you had this on display here for a show ever? Shame. As Kirill was saying earlier, one of the most attractive things about collecting posters is that you can buy museum quality work at less than enormous prices. This is an Italian poster by Franz Lenhardt, advertising rolling paper. And again, I'll come back to this a few times during this presentation. I am so enamored by the fact that such a high art form as Art Deco could have been used to market such a mundane, even lowly product like rolling paper. And this really is so incredibly elegant. The woman is sort of emerging from the background. There are no outlines at all. It's simply the green against the black and the white of the cigarette with that trace smoke rising. Just a great, great image. Another wonderful Italian poster, this by Umberto di Lazzaro, from the early days of Italian aviation. And one of the very sweet things about this is you sort of see the people in the window. If you can remember maybe when you were younger and you took a plane for the first time, how you were always looking out the window. This was not just people who were flying when they were young. This was the first time people were in the air and they were pressed to the window. This is incredible. It's also very clever how he has incorporated the colors of the Italian flag into the image. But a really great image for that. Charles Lupeau, we saw his poster earlier for the Art Deco exposition. This one, again, a few years earlier, 1920, for a small, no longer extant brand of Swiss automobiles. This is a really fabulous, fabulous, complex, sophisticated image, and yet it very simply expresses the message it's trying to get. Here's a woman driving up a hill. The wind is blowing her hair. You don't even see the car. All you do is you feel the power that this vehicle exudes. And Lupeau's style is very appropriate for this kind of a message, because if you look, his typography and even the image, which is done with an airbrush, is all a little bit blurry, and that's the vibration of the car, which is great. And I don't at all want this to be like a marketing talk, but as Kirill mentioned, the most expensive London Underground poster before, this is one of the most expensive Art Deco posters. When it comes up for auction, which is almost never, it tends to sell in the $120,000 range. I wouldn't pay that, but people do. This is another extraordinary and scarce Art Deco poster for the Pierce Arrow automobile, designed and printed by a small Belgian car dealership in 1929. If you take a really close look, it looks, Pierce Arrow, like an arrow, but if you look closely, the bow is a leather-covered steering wheel. I mean, this was a very clever design, and it implies just how fancy the car was. And what you can't see from the picture is that all of the silver was metallic ink. So this, as opposed to the Art Deco exposition posters, which were printed on the cheap, this one was really printed at a very, very high level, and the design is absolutely exquisite. Then we have this car poster by Paul Colin, another one of the French greats. Again, you don't really see the details of the car so much, you just get the feeling of the car whizzing down a country road where everything, even the scenery, is a blur. It's a fantastic, fantastic design. Again, in the world of hyperbole, this next image may in fact be one of the most famous and one of the most expensive Art Deco posters by one of the great artists, A.M. Cassand. This poster was for a newspaper. And if you just take, it's great to look at, but if you dissect it just a little bit, there are telegraph poles, which again were, not new, but fairly modern in the 1920s. And the telegraph poles, all of the wires are leading basically into this character's ear. He is being force-fed news, and in turn, he is, I believe the character is a personification of the newspaper itself. So all of the information is being funneled into the newspaper, and like a town crier, the newspaper is spreading that information to everybody else. And the way that the telegraph lines go in, it draws our attention in. So it's a great dynamic design. Exceptionally rare, exceptionally beautiful, and just also a great message. This may be one of the most famous posters from the Art Deco machine age era. I've seen it on t-shirts, coffee mugs, mouse pads, one of the great railway posters. And you can see that the artist, the same as the previous poster, Cassandre, really had this thing for telegraph lines that disappear into the distance. So here, the train tracks, the perspective of the train are all fading to the vanishing point down there, which is the direction the train is going in. It was a unique trackside view of the train. So it really is like you're standing there at the track watching it go by, filled with energy, and also incredibly creative typographically, as Cassandre moved the majority of the text basically to the border of the poster, leaving the entire image field for his incredible design. Same artist, same great image. Again, I think people who have never seen a poster before or wouldn't know a vintage poster from a garbage can would recognize this image. One of the all-time great ocean liner images. So much to be said about this, but to me, one of the most glorious graphic aspects of this poster are this flock of seagulls right there, this tiny little, almost imperceptible flock of birds, which just help puts the entire majesty and enormity of the ship into perspective. It's also just incredible. Like, look at this, it's like the tiniest little wake. This ship is so smooth. Not entirely true, but this ship was depicted as being so smooth that it was an effortless flight, an effortless cruise across the ocean. Clearly, I did not include the artist's name and date on this. My apologies. This is a Czech artist named Willem Rotter, R-O-T-T-E-R. This poster is from the mid to late 1930s. It is the Czech answer to Cassandre's Nord Express. This was one of the most modernist trains running in Czechoslovakia between Bratislava and Prague. Bratislava being the capital of the Slovak part of the country and Prague being the capital of the Czech part. One of the most extraordinary images. Definitely he gave a nod to Cassandre. He has the telegraph lines in the background. But this one is just a great image by a fairly unknown artist, but one that certainly can hold its own with the rest of European designers. Kirill, you showed this poster earlier for the Night Scotsman. Leo Marfour, a Belgian artist working for British Rail. I mean, it's Art Deco, it's Cubist, it's almost futurist with the flat shapes, and it's static and yet it's filled with movement. I don't know if I've ever actually seen this poster for sale in my 30 some odd years in the business, maybe once or twice. It's incredibly rare, it's incredibly beautiful. And it's also fascinating to see how Belgian artists were working in England and how the Art Deco style really existed all across Europe, as it did here in this just wonderful, wonderful tourist poster for Bilbao. Again, just dynamic, almost futurist in its design. Even though you can't make out any details, what is clear is this is an elegant and stylish resort, which is exactly the message that the PNT, the Spanish train company, wanted to convey. This is a French poster. Something about this poster is different from all the other posters that we've looked at so far. And rather than make you guess, I'll just tell you, this was for an event that was only for a single night. Right? This was not a tourist poster that was meant to last for months and months. This was a poster that was printed for this one event on the 8th of December at the Folies Bergère. Maurice Picot, the artist, is most famous for the exterior design of the Folies Bergère. So he designed the building, and then he designed this poster. And I think he did a real incredible job. The profiles of the couples, again, in a sort of very Picasso-like way, You don't exactly see what's happening, but you know exactly what's happening. And very elegant. And then this, one of the, maybe the most sensational posters of the 1920s, of the what they called the black craze in Paris, where black performers were not given the freedom or the opportunity to perform as much in America, and many of them went to Paris, where people like Josephine Baker became international sensations, something that would not have been afforded to them had they stayed in the States. And again, this is for a one-night event, and yet for something that was printed quickly for a one-night event, it has resonated down over the last almost 100 years. Great, great piece of Josephine Baker performing. I mean, the movement, again, they are dancing so fast, and I guess I take this very personally, they're dancing so fast the plaid is coming off their clothes, right? It's like you can't even follow. So that's how movement is represented, which I think is very wonderfully representative of Art Nouveau, Art Deco in general. And Josephine Baker really was the darling of a lot of poster designers, including Zig, Louis Gaudin. One of the wonderful things about this poster, again, it exists in two different sizes. One is about my height. So you can imagine if you were walking down the streets of Paris and you saw that, how eye-catching and exceptional it will be. The other one is more sort of window size. But again, here she is with a very Art Deco boa and this wonderful subservient cheetah with a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Back to Paul Colin again. This one you did have on exhibition here. Once again, this incredibly wonderful and sophisticated art form being used to advertise something rather mundane, in this case, an optician. I mean, you just cannot imagine your eye doctor now using this kind of advertising. Just extraordinary. And when this poster was up on display here at Poster House, in one of the tours that Angelina was giving, and those of you who have not been to one of her tours here, you should definitely make it a point to come. She gives good tour. But we realized that when this poster was up, and I was looking at it, and we mentioned before how Charles Lupeau used vibration on his image to sort of present the car's engine, a pulsating car's engine, and how Paul Colin also in his other poster for Peugeot used that sort of vibrations to indicate the fast trees moving. My theory on this poster, and it's such a good theory because nobody can refute it. It is an irrefutable theory. It's just a theory, but it's an irrefutable theory, an irrefutable possibility, is that when you look at the lettering for Leroy, which is the name of the optician, the letters are vibrating. The letters are a little bit blurry. And it occurs to me what a genius idea that Paul Colin had, where you look at this poster, where all you see are the man's eyes, and his whole world is about to become clearer as he puts on his glasses, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, the letters are blurry. Maybe I need glasses. I do think there's something to that. My favorite example of the highest form of design, Art Deco, being used to advertise the most mundane thing ever, and you can argue fairly that opticians are not necessarily mundane. Yo-yos are mundane. And here, Raymond Gide personifies 3 yo-yos, anthropomorphizes 3 yo-yos for this absolutely exquisite fluid ad promoting Duncan yo-yos. Who knew Duncan yo-yos even existed in the 1930s, and who knew they would have been so progressive as to, hire an artist who could use such an incredible style. Their heads are yo-yos, they're playing with yo-yos. The whole thing is just fantastic. One of absolutely my favorite posters, and just a great representation of how the art form was ubiquitous and how it was used from everything to sell very expensive cars to little plastic toys for kids. This is another poster by William Welsh, very poorly placed here, not with the other one. But we're just going to end now with a couple of American posters because, like I said, I was very, very pleased to discover over the years the number of great Art Deco American images. So this is another one for the Pullman Company of women doing various activities along the Pullman rail lines. Here, this woman is sketching, and look at the stylized birds across the top. It's absolutely extraordinary, and even the stylized sort of landscape behind her is also simply fantastic. Anybody here from Cleveland? Wow. Wasn't expecting that. Welcome. So Cleveland had this extraordinary club called the Cocoon Club. And in the 1920s and 1930s, the Cocoon Club, which was an artist club, every year had their ball. And every year for their ball, they used, I guess they didn't hire, because they used members of the club to create posters, which you can find with some regularity if you're lucky. The images are extraordinary. Again, maybe a blend between Futurism and Cubism and Art Deco. Not just a poster, these were also the invitations to the event. So you are invited, Mr. Edgar Brill, and these were folded and mailed to people to come. And each one is like this little unexpected American Art Deco gem, and really a wonder and a pleasure to find them. And sort of, again, posters are not just fun to look at, they're an intellectual pursuit that open windows into different parts of history. And I would never have known about the Cocoon Club, I would never have known about the vibrant artistic community in Cleveland except for these posters. So really fantastic. And I want to end with this poster, which is a very late era American Art Deco poster for the 1939 World's Fair in San Francisco. Pictured is the Incan-inspired Tower of the Sun. There's the Golden Gate Bridge, the San Francisco Bay Bridge. And this was an island that was basically built to accommodate the World's Fair. And again, I think this poster, which was designed by an architectural firm, really captures all of the important attributes, really ticks all the boxes and rings all the bells and blows all the whistles of a classic Art Deco design. And again, it's very, very wonderful, for me anyway, to think that this Art Deco style was universal, that it existed as much, if not as much, but it existed as well in America as it did in Europe. And I will end there. I thank you all very much for your attention. Should you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I would also be even happier not to answer. Okay, go ahead.
So what would you say is sort of the period of the Art Deco poster, from when to when? How do you frame that?
Well, I would say it's less about what the period of the Art Deco poster is. And Angelina and I have argued this at great length, the Art Deco era itself. I mean, like I said, the imagery began in the years right before the First World War, 1916, 1915. We say that they've gone up as high as 1939. But I would say basically the interwar years as a very loose benchmark. But you will find images from the 1940s that have great Art Deco stylization. And you'll find images probably from around 1910, 1912 that also have a really distinct Art Deco feel, and whether or not they are from the Art Deco era or not is debatable, but we're really looking at these images and the stylistic way in which they catch our attention, hold our attention, and appeal to whatever in us, whatever inside us is attracted to these kind of designs. Yes?
How did Art Deco fall out of favor, and what were people saying about it at the time?
So I spoke to a lot of people back then. No, just kidding. I think it fell out of favor with the Second World War. Just like Art Nouveau fell out of favor with the First World War. Art Nouveau was this beautiful, elegant, swirly, natural, graceful art form. And then there were the trenches of World War I where people were slaughtered by the thousands. And all of a sudden, the world didn't seem as pretty anymore. And Art Nouveau fell out of favor. And I think similarly, Art Deco was really considered a progressive, new, forward-thinking art. And I think everybody had to recalibrate what they were thinking in the wake of the Second World War. So very broadly speaking, and that's why I say the interwar period is that period. I think it was the Second World War that changed everybody's focus. And then, there's not outside of maybe mid-century modernism, which was a bunch of years later, can you think of any distinct art styles that came in the era following the Second World War? No. You can. No time, what is it?
I think maybe abstract expressionism, but not in the poster.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm only talking about absolutely abstract expressionism for sure.
Not in the poster.
I've never seen an abstract. Have you seen an abstract expressionist poster? I'm sure they exist. You had a question, I think.
Could you imagine for us how a poster, such as Josephine Baker in that February One Night event,
Mm-hmm.
how that poster, perhaps printed in limited quantities, still exists? And maybe even when did it enter the marketplace?
What a great question. Josephine Baker was so famous, Paul Celan was so famous that I'm sure more of those posters were printed than were used. And I say I'm sure, like I said, I can say like I'm really sure. I have no idea, but I imagine, and you asked me to imagine, so let me imagine that these two famous people coming together printed more posters than were actually needed. You know, I don't know when exactly they would have become collectible, but the great thing about posters is, and Kirill alluded to this a little bit earlier, posters are an unexpected art form. They were never done as art necessarily. They were done as commerce. They were printed for commercial reasons. One of the most frequently asked questions that I'm ever asked is how many were printed, right? So if Picasso did a lithograph, he would print 50 and he'd number each one, and maybe there were some artist proofs, but we basically knew there were 50 or there were 100 of these lithographs. Posters were commercial and the numbers were never counted, so we don't know. But it's amazing that people kept them. You know, if you collect stamps, you can put 10,000 stamps into 3 books and have them on your shelf, and you can look at them wherever you want. If you have 20 posters, where are you going to put them? And this is hard. So for somebody to have kept them, they must have loved it to begin with. They admired it. Sometimes they got it for free. They may have peeled them off the walls. They may have bribed a bill poster to take some. But they knew that they were beautiful enough and must have felt that they were important enough to keep. And that's how they survived. They survived out of the unexpected love and passion of the people who saw them and appreciated them.
I'm curious, what's the poster that you've seen a photograph of that you've never actually seen?
Well, so Kirill showed that piece earlier of the London Underground, which was absolutely amazing. I'd never seen that before, didn't realize that it hadn't been a poster, so I'm not sure that's the exact question you're answering. I didn't know that existed. You're basically saying, what's my white whale?
Yes.
I have to think about that. What I do know, that one of the things that I love so much about being in this business, and I've been in the business for a long time, is that still, now, today, I am seeing images that I've never seen before. And that's great. It's a never-ending historical search. One of the posters I have seen in real life, but it was on my list. There's a very large American billboard for, is it Ford by Cassand, which has a big I and a big V. And just randomly, I was at an Art Deco show at the St. Louis Art Museum, and they happened to have that poster up, which they borrowed from the MoMA, which I believe may be the only copy in the world. But for years, that was a poster I just only knew from photographs, and was super delighted to see it. Mr. Weinbaum.
Yes, you mentioned that you were in the St. Louis Museum. I think it's important to recognize that museums have played a significant role in developing an audience for vintage posters. In roughly 1970, Rice University produced an exquisite catalog of Art Nouveau graphics, furniture, metalwork, glassware, etc. It was the beginning of a new age of interest in Art Nouveau. And I think it's unfortunate, I don't know, are there any museum curators that are in the audience today?
Well, Angelina's here.
Other than Angelina, of course, I'm talking about others. It seems to me that promoting Victorian Albert Museum, or whether it's MoMA, or whether it's a whole host of other museums. We're very fortunate that they are repositories, to a large extent, of vintage posters of different periods.
Well, I just think it's important. I think you're right. I mean, you're both complimenting the museums on spreading the gospel and putting them down for not spreading it enough. So we have to find a happy balance. The thing about this exhibition in St. Louis that I thought was so wonderful, it was cars, it was fashion, it was furniture, it was jewelry, and then they had posters to match each one. So I do think that anybody who is studying history and trying to put on a balanced exhibition about moments in time, posters can certainly fit in.
Just one last thought. MoMA, a number of years ago, had a design section to the museum. They changed their perspective and decided that contextually posters should be focused upon with furniture, with objects, etc. It speaks to exactly what you saw in St. Louis.
Yep, and I think it's great, and I think it's going to be happening more and more. Listen, institutions like Poster House and organizations like the IVPDA are doing an incredible job, if not spreading the gospel, then keeping the gospel out there. And you see posters all the time in movies and on television shows where they're trying to recreate a historical era. Sometimes they get them wrong, which we enjoy very much. But the point is, but they're out there, and the more work that we do, I think the better, the more everybody else will begin to understand and appreciate it. At least that's my hope. Thank you guys, everybody. Is it lunchtime now? I think we're going to take a brief break for lunch, and then we're going to come right back here and continue with today's symposium. Thank you.